Welcome to the 8th day of Halloween season, horror fam! Tonight we're diving into a collection of stories that will leave your jaw on the floor and your mind racing. Because these tales are all about the craziest twist. You think you know where the story's going? But trust me, you'll never see these endings coming. Expect the unexpected, because these chilling tales will have you questioning everything by the time they're through. So grab your blankets, dim the lights, and get ready for a roller coaster ride of spine-tingling twist.
I was adopted. I never knew my real mother. I loved my adopted family, though. They were so kind to me. I ate well, I lived in a comfortable house, and I got to stay up pretty late. My adopted mom was named Janice. She was a very kind woman. And if I had to guess, I'd say she's the one that recommended my adoption in the first place. Sometimes I would lay my head against her in front of the TV, and she would tickle my back with her nails. She's one of those Hollywood mothers. Too good to be true. Then there's my adopted dad, Richard. I always felt like he never really liked me, so I began to try to do things to make him happy. He was neutral to me at best. It was clear he would never love me as much as his own child. That's understandable, so I didn't really press the matter. Dad wasn't all bad, though. He was very consistent, maybe to a fault. He was stern, and had an unwavering commitment to doing things properly. He also wasn't afraid to pop his children when they did something wrong. I found that out before I could use the restroom properly. He didn't hesitate to spank me. I'm in line, and that's because of his methods, and at least he always knew where you stood with him. Lastly is my adopted sister, Emily. She was slightly older than me, but in my heart, she was my little sister. We got along better than any siblings could possibly get along. We would always stay up late together and just talk. Well, she did most of the talking. I mostly just listened, because I loved her. I was just so glad to have someone there. It was a great setup that we had. We were short on bedrooms, so, because I didn't want to sleep in the living room by myself when I was so small, I had a mattress set up for me next to her bed on the floor. The apartment wasn't very big. I'd probably have to move to the living room soon, but some of the best nights of my life have been spent on the mattress in this room. Everything changed on a horrible Wednesday night. I was at home taking a nap when Emily opened the front door and woke me up. It was summer. School was out. I was never any good at keeping track of what day it was, but Wednesdays were easy. Emily would go to church youth group on Wednesdays, and I would take a long nap on her bed. It was better than the mattress I slept on, so it was something I looked forward to. Anyway, she walked in the front door and hugged me, and then was followed in by Dad and Mom. Mom teasingly asked if I had a good nap, as she ruffled my hair. I just pulled my head away and grunted back in a playful manner. "Don't you grunt at your mother like that," said my father gruffly. "I was clearly joking," I growled under my breath. He must not have heard me, because I didn't feel him smack me. Emily then proceeded to her room, and I followed. She started telling me all about youth group. You know, typical teenage girl stuff. After hearing all about youth group, she suggested we watch some TV. Before she even finished the sentence, I took off for the living room and jokingly stretched out on the sofa, taking up the entire thing. She rolled her eyes at my little brother-like immaturity and scooted me over and sat down. We watched TV together until the sun went down. Emily was the kind of girl that, instead of watching cartoons or soap operas, would rather watch Discovery and National Geographic. I liked those too. Actually, they were the only channels that could hold my attention. This might be another reason why we got along so well. It got late, and Mom walked up behind the sofa, telling Emily it was past her bedtime and she had to go to bed. Then she turned to me and said, "You too." Emily turned off the TV and grudgingly stood up and started down the hallway. As I followed her, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. We went into her room, and Emily turned off the light. Just as she did, I caught a flash of movement out of the corner of my eye. It was out of the window, but as soon as I turned to see what it was gone. I didn't want to scare Emily, and I did wake up from a nice long nap only a few hours ago. So I decided I would remain alert for a while. I laid there, in the darkness, with nothing but a thin ray of light from the street lamp outside to illuminate the room. It wasn't much. Time and time again, I could have sworn that I could hear sounds just outside the window. A twig break, leaves crunching, clothes jostling. And all the while I could smell a faint stench of body odor, or garbage, or some terrible mix of the two. Eventually the sounds outside subsided, and the smell left my nose. I began to feel at ease. My eyelids closed. Not long after that, I heard a very loud crash on the other side of the house. I was up in an instant. "There's someone in the house!" I barked with extreme adrenaline coursing through me. "Wake up!" I shrilly pleaded with Emily. She did, and as soon as I saw her sit up, I ran to my parents' room. When I got there, I'm pretty sure my dad was already dead. He was stabbed. The blood was soaked into the bedding. I pushed the door open a little more, and that's when I saw him. He was just standing there, in front of my parents' bathroom. He was very large and rugged. He turned around and saw me, and that's when I saw him accurately for the first time. I won't forget it. His eyes were opened wide. He was covered in a horrible mixture of sweat and my father's blood. His clothes were filthy. Just then I noticed the same horrid smell from earlier, but this time it was overwhelming. He saw me and grinned with a set of crooked yellow teeth. That smile threw me off. I thought that I was going to die, but then he turned back to the bathroom door, completely unperturbed by my presence. I was terrified and didn't know what to do. I just yelled and cried. I watched as he forced a door open that was my mom's only protection. I watched as he pulled out a knife, and watched as he killed my mother. I was completely paralyzed with fear. I couldn't move, but I could feel like electricity was running through my body. I was shivering. Then I heard something, the last thing I wanted to hear. It was Emily's scream, coming from behind me. The large monstrosity looked up from my mother and stared at my little sister. I was distraught. He stood up and quickly started towards us. My sister turned and ran. I couldn't move. I wish I could say I was being brave, that I intended to stop or fight this monster. But there was nothing noble about this act. I still couldn't move, and I was at a complete loss when he bypassed me and went straight after her. Why was she still in the house? She should have run. He got a hold of her and started pulling on her. That's when something inside of me snapped. I was filled with desperation, anger, hate. I ran to them while making all the noise I could, hoping, praying that somebody would hear and get help. As he passed me, I backed against the wall and whimpered with terror. Why? He didn't respond except by putting his free hand on my head while Emily screamed in his other hand. He said, "Good boy." He gave another crooked grin and a wink, and let out a very unnatural laugh. I followed him to the door, where he dragged my helpless sister after him. He opened it, pulled her out, and slammed it shut behind them. I'm now sitting in the house with my dead adopted parents, shivering and whimpering, and he's out there with her, and I can't do anything about it. I would if I could, but I can't. I would chase after them in a heartbeat, but I can't. I'm sitting here at the front door and look down at my paws. If only I could open doors. I was at home taking a nap when Emily opened the front door and woke me up. It was summer. School was out. I was never any good at keeping track of what day it was, but Wednesdays were easy. It was the summer of 1992. Me and my girlfriend Tina worked together for a contracting company, and we were on our way home. We lived close, so we would carpool often. We were on a road we took hundreds of times to get to and from work. A few minutes in, I noticed we were very low on gas. So low, I didn't know if we'd make it to a station. There were no cell phones back then to call for help if you got stranded, so we just kept driving, just hoping we had enough gas to make it. Soon we were surrounded by pine trees. It was strange. This road was farms, not forest. We got even more nervous. Then we saw some small old buildings and an old house. In front of one of the smaller buildings were some very old gas pumps. We had never seen this gas station before, even though we'd been down this road countless times, but we figured we somehow missed it and pulled up to the pump. We walked up to the small building. It looked very run down, but there was a light on inside. We entered. It was a small room with a counter. I called out, "Hello? We would like to buy some gas." A strange-looking old man came out from another room. He had on thick glasses and was covered in car grease. I told him we needed gas. He looked at me like he didn't understand. I repeated myself a few times before he then mumbled something and shook his head yes. Then he grabbed a key and quickly headed out to a pump. It was strange how he moved. His movements were almost inhuman. After unlocking the pump, we started pumping the gas. It was taking forever, and the strange old man just stared at us while rocking back and forth. It was very unnerving. Finally, it finished filling, and we paid the man. He took out a blank receipt and filled it out with a ballpoint pen. And we got out of there, quick. We could see the old man waving goodbye as we left. As we drove, the car started to misfire, and black smoke came out of the exhaust. He must have given us diesel instead of regular gas. We made it to a repair station, where they would have to empty the fuel tank by hand. The mechanic who emptied the gas tank said that it wasn't diesel like we thought. He said it looked like gasoline they used back during World War II. We told him where we got the gas from. The mechanic looked confused. He told us there wasn't a gas station there. We told him we'd never seen it before either, but it was there today. The mechanic looked afraid. A few days later, we drove back on that road to try and find that gas station. We couldn't find it. We drove back and forth several times. It was gone. I talked to some people around town, who had lived there a while, and they said they've never seen a gas station there. One old man said there had been a gas station there about 50 years ago. We must have experienced some kind of time slip. I still have the receipt the old man gave me at the old gas station.
This kill is sponsored by Legendary Dark Champions. When you need your champions to be the legendariest and the darkest, think Legendary Dark Champions. The best, most newest RPG first-person shooter sandbox game ever made.
As she opened the box, I watched helplessly as everyone else clamored to escape. Trapped in here alone, I hold on to the hope that she will open it again before it's too late.
Glowing with an ethereal light, I didn't dare blink as I moved, enamored, towards her. She called to me with a low hum, the smell of burnt carcasses pervading my senses. She was a bug zapper, and I was a moth.
And that wraps up Day 8, Horror Fam! I hope these twist endings left you reeling and second-guessing everything you thought you knew. From shocking revelations, to mind-bending surprises, tonight's stories took us on a wild ride. But don't get too comfortable just yet. There are even more surprises waiting as we continue our countdown to Halloween. So be sure to join us for Day 9. And as always, stay spooky and take good care of yourselves.